Our thoughts and feelings are our own and are not representative of Electronic Arts as a whole or anyone else.
Once again, it's time for the Team Lift podcast with your hosts, Brandon Bowie and Roderick McDaniel. Let's go ahead and get right into the show.
All right. So what's going on, man?
Nothing.
This is it's been a crazy moment. Okay, let me tell you what just happened before
It's been a crazy month, man.
It has been. But I was just talking to Reed, that was been on the show with us twice. And we were talking about, I just finished Lego Batman 3.
Lego Batman
Part 3 for the PS4. I got the 7th Platinum for the year. Mm-hmm. My 7th game I beat. I'm going through my back library and I'm beating games. And it's just, okay, I'm doing, Chainsaw 8. We had Major Tommy was on the show, and for our Nintendo Switch special. So he has this thing with Chainsaw 8, who does this great Twitch cast, and it's the 52-week challenge. Mm-hmm. 52-week game challenge. You try to play as many games as you can in 52 weeks. Last year, he had 52 games. He beat 52 games. Yeah. Pretty impressive feat. I'm just trying to finish up my back library. So I've played 7 games, but I took it a step further, trying to be an overachiever, and I've started 100%ing all my games.
That's time consuming.
Tad bit, but I've done 7 games in roughly 8 weeks.
Wow.
That's not bad. I mean, so,
You're
some
on
of
track.
those were some lengthy ones. So 7 games in 8 weeks, not bad. I'm staying with it. I'm taking this week off, I think. But I just finished Lego Batman 3, and it was so weird. I had 5 of these air races left in the game to do on this planet Oa, and they were frustrating the hell out of me. And so he and I were in a party chat, and he was like, hey, let me see the controller. And I, on the PS4, you can share play with someone. Mm-hmm. And so he's in Abilene, I'm here in Austin. I just threw control over to him and let him see how frustrating these games were and why I was having such a hard time with him. And this fool ended up playing for 2 hours in the game. He played for 2 hours while we were just sitting there talking, and he was playing, oh my God, why these races are... Like, he was getting hyped playing Lego Batman 3. Yeah. And I was just like, bro, you understand my whole life. This is what I've been, just trying to finish these 5 off. So we sit on there, make a night out of it, and it just goes by fast. He gets a couple, I get one, he gets another one. So we just end up, like, we were about to quit, just screw this last race. And he ended up saying, no, we're going to play for a little while longer. And I said, we both got to get up in the morning. We play, finish it. Great night,
The way you do it.
So it was cool. We had a great time. And then I was calling him before I was coming on my way to the podcast tonight. And I just tell him, hey, Lego Batman 3 is a lot like Suge Knight. There are people that are going to end up dead behind this stupid-ass thing. And it's just such a frustrating game. And he said, and it led from us talking about this video game being Suge Knight to now us riffing for 10 minutes on if Suge Knight was president.
Oh, God.
If Suge Knight was president. And it was like for 10 minutes, that was all we talked about. Like, we so far derailed the conversation from Lego Batman 3 to Suge Knight being president. But we did come up to the conclusion that, it'd be like, Mr. President, what are we going to do to get us, the economy? Baby, we going to sell drugs, okay? and he said, and Reed was like, he could not say that. I said, the CIA already does it, baby.
Guns and drugs.
Yeah, so I was like, man, we would just go ahead and legalize this, man. Be slinging rocks in Baghdad. Just like, if we don't like your country, we just introduce crack into it.
I mean, after we took over Afghanistan, once Obama came into office, they increased the opioid production in that country by like 90%.
Just saying. We just go in and take over your country, and we sell drugs.
Yeah.
And then we make our money. We don't even hide it. We just like, everybody gonna get free education. Also, weed is legalized. All weed dispensaries now are taxed. I was just like, it just be a money-making venture everywhere.
Yeah.
But then I also realized that, the SEAL teams would have to choose whether they were Bloods or Cribs, and then it just got weirder and weirder. But we were like, it'd be crazy if he was president, because then there'd be guys in the Klan like, can't we just have Obama back? That was pretty much what happened, man. So I was like, how did we derail the conversation this far? But we were coming over here because I knew we were about to have a serious conversation, so I needed to get something goofy to get my spirits up.
So that feature that you're talking about on the PlayStation, you can actually do that with a PC too.
That share play?
Yeah, if you've got an NVIDIA card with the GeForce Experience drivers,
Yeah.
you can literally send a URL to somebody, and they can jump in and watch you play, or they can play, or you can play co-op. So you can control a character, and they can control a character from afar. And
We
you
did
only
that
have to
for a
have
while, too,
one
last
copy
night.
of the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, we were doing the double play, so he took over. I let him have the lead character spot, and I just kind of sat there. And the thing was, I was trying to give him the whole game, but his internet kept dropping it, kept telling me he wasn't good enough. So what I did is I did a share play and brought him in as an invite, and I stayed as one character. So it was like a peer-to-peer connection, and it made it stronger, and we never dropped again the rest of the night. And it was just like, that's weird. Okay. But it was cool.
This would do direct send. Like, it would send from my computer to your computer. It's just the same thing as like connecting with the NVIDIA Shield that's in my bedroom. Mm-hmm. You do the same exact thing.
Oh, that's neat. I like that. I have to look into that. Well, that's even more reason why I want a 1070 for my tower that I build this year. I still intend to build this year.
So they just announced the GTX the 1080 Ti.
They did?
Yeah, $699, 11 gigabit of RAM, 35% faster than the 1080, and they dropped the 1080 down to $499. So
are they feeling some heat?
I don't know. I mean, AMD was supposed to release or start talking about Vega, and they just said Vega's coming in our new GPUs are coming in April. They didn't even talk about Vega. So the new GPUs that are coming in April aren't even new. They're just rebadged 500 series, but they're actually the 400 series cards. So Vega sometime this summer, maybe. AMD really needs to quit with this drip feed horse shit. They just need to tell us what the fuck is going on,
bro. Because they dropped the bomb on the
they
CPU.
dropped the bomb on fucking Intel. Intel dropped prices like a motherfucker.
Bro, when you come out and your stuff is faster than an Intel processor and cheaper, you kind of gotta. Intel had to respond.
Chinese company broke the embargo on information on it, and they tested, I believe it's the X1700, which is it's not the top end processor, it's the one right below it.
Right.
And they have it up against some Intel processors, or an Intel processor that's of the same spec relatively. And in 9 out of 13 tests, the AMD processor either matched it or beat it. Jesus. So if they're doing that well at $329, Intel is going to have to lower all their prices permanently. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to compete unless they just like flop out a giant Intel cock on AMD and release a whole cadre of brand new processors that are even faster than the ones that they've got out and are at the same price point as what AMD's doing. But I don't think Intel has that. I don't think Intel even thought that AMD was as far ahead of the game as they are, which is really surprising because you'd figure it's their biggest and only competitor in the PC space. They would, do some kind of corporate espionage to try to figure out what's going on.
When you've been running second place, you kind of get cocky, and you just think, "What do we care? They're never going to be able to compete." And you know what? That's a lot of businesses get that way. And when it happens, hey, I think it's great for PC gamers.
Yeah.
It's great enough that it's got, like, I'm coming back. Since this whole thing came out and I started seeing what they were going to do with their processors and we know the GPUs, I was like, I'm coming back.
And that's the other thing, too, is like this is just the first 3 processors they're releasing. They have 2 other sets of 3 processors. They've got, so the ones that they're releasing right now are 8-core 16-thread. Then they're going to be releasing 6-core 12-thread, and then they're going to be releasing 4-core 8-thread. So they're going to have processors. So AMD's top-end processors are the R7, and the processors that they match up against, or would technically match up against if you just went letter for letter, is the i7s. And the i7s they've got the 4-core, the 6-core, and the 8-core, and then a 10-core, and they're just ridiculously priced. They're like 4-core is about $400, 6-core is about $650, 8-core is $1,000, and 10-core is $1,500. I'm
running an i7 in that tower at work.
Yeah, and so since on the AMD side of things, the top end processors are going to be 8-core 16-thread.
Yeah.
The middle of the ground processors are going to be 6-core 12-thread, and the lowest processors on their rung are going to be 4-core 8-thread.
That's kind of impressive when you say a 6-core 12 thread is your middle of the road.
Yeah, which that's what this is. It's 6-core 12 thread, and it's $650 just for that processor, and then another $200 for the motherboard. So on the AMD side of things, the R5s haven't even been announced yet, and the lowest 8-core 16-thread processor that they're releasing as their flagship is $329.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like almost half the cost.
Go
Actually, it is half the cost because it's $650 versus $329.
It's going to get real interesting come June, man, when all of these are out, GPUs and CPUs are out on the market.
They are basically pushing the market towards 6-core 8-thread being the normal everyday desktop user, and the high-end desktop user is 8-core 16-thread, whereas Intel's still stuck in the last 7 years of 4-core 8-thread is mainstream, 6-core, 8-core, and 10-core are super extreme and have super extreme price.
Yeah, no. If it just keeps, I'm going to wait. Like I told you, I think you're doing the same thing because we were talking about you building a new tower, and I think you said the same thing. I'm going to wait. I'm going to watch all the benchmarks.
Yeah.
I'm not going to buy into the hype, and then once all the prices bottom out, I'm going to buy what's the best for my dollar.
Yeah.
I'm going to get the most bang for my buck.
I don't even really think that I don't even need to build a new system. Like, I'm fine with what I've got. It works amazingly well. I don't have any problems with it. So I could see waiting a year or almost 2 years to go into like actually buying something new and to see where AMD takes this thing, because these processors can go, they can scale on the server side of things all the way up to 32 core 64 thread. They have those. They've seen, like, people who build servers have seen that spec coming out of AMD on the server side of things. So there's a possibility that they could launch an extreme edition version of the processor that's 10 core 20 thread, or 16 core 32 thread if they wanted to on the super high end.
Would you just build a server at that point?
I mean, basically, but that's the thing, is like the term server is ever changing. Right. So like what we consider to be a server right now, in 10 years, that's just your shitty laptop bottom dollar thing. Whereas like what's super hot right now on the desktop side compared to what they have on the server side, it looks like a piece of shit. Mm-hmm. The problem is that the more cores you throw at the architecture that Intel currently has, the less room for overclocking and the less overall speed you get, unless you're running in parallel processing environments where every application is taking advantage of every thread that's can possibly be there. Mm-hmm. So like this thing overclocks, it's a 3.5 out of the box, and I got it up to 4.5, which is pretty goddamn good. Mm-hmm. Whereas like this same processor architecture, but 4-core 8-thread, could go up to 4.7 or 4.9. So there's more overhead room for overclocking when the die is smaller, because the die is smaller because you have less cores.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. So I know what you got me here for. I know what we're about to talk about. Yeah. We kind of digressed, but I know what we're about to talk about.
We've been wanting to talk about this for a while. It's technically old news, but I think we have a different
I think we do have a different take on it, because a lot of I'm familiar with all the stories, and I saw it when I want to say, I think it was GameSpot that broke it. I remember seeing them really talk about it pretty heavy. But.
Yeah, that and Jim Sterling and Total Biscuit talked about it for a little while. Yeah. It kind of like came up and it was a really big thing for a few days, and then it just kind of died out.
It did.
Nobody's talking about it anymore.
And I think it was. I knew it was. I hate to say this. I think you and I talked about it. I think it's going to die out. Mm-hmm. And the reason I thought it was going to die out was because of our take that we're about to take on it. That it wasn't that big of a deal, because it'd been around for a while. So without any mystery, let's go ahead and just get into it. I'm sure many people that listen to our show, being the video game fans they are, have heard of GameStop's Circle of Life program. Okay, and that was this big stink that somebody leaked the information that there were some stores that were doing some pretty shady things to push their used sales and stuff instead of selling you a new copy of the game. I think is what the story kind of went with that angle. Being a guy that worked for GameStop for years, Hey, I don't want anybody to think I'm going to be biased toward GameStop. I just have a different take because I was behind the scene. I don't have an axe to grind with them. So it's not like I'm going to rip them or throw them under a bus or anything. I'm just going to tell you the truth and how it boils down. And then we did talk to some people. Like, I reached out to here in Austin. I've made a lot of really good friends working in the video game industry. So it was easy for me to go to people who are listening to the podcast and work for GameStop and say, hey, I want to interview you about this subject for the podcast. And they really were forthcoming and willing to speak freely,
Mm-hmm.
as long as I didn't use names. And I promised I wouldn't use any names. And so let's go ahead and break it down. So I think a lot of people don't know what the Circle of Life is. And Circle of Life is a program that GameStop has had for years. And it was based on the idea that when people trade in their games and products, all right, it creates supply for GameStop to sell. Okay.
Yeah.
So we need used stuff coming in to create used sales.
And sell at 100% profit because they don't have to give any of the money that they make off a used game sale back to the publisher or the developer. Because that's a lot of the reason why console games are so fucking expensive is because every single game they want to sell at $59.99 or $69.99 or $79.99 because they don't get any extra money after that gets resold to GameStop and then sold back to somebody else.
Yeah.
It's the reason why, like, even at our work, the console games always cost double what the PC games cost whenever we buy them in-house. Mm-hmm. And that's because that resell value of that product has to be garnered at the outset of the actual sale. And so the reason why you don't see a lot of sales on games on the consoles is specifically because there is a used market, which just blows my goddamn mind. I mean, this is the exact reason why Microsoft wanted to take the Xbox and just make it digital only. Because if they did that, they could literally cut off the Circle of Life on GameStop and just kill that whole retail brand.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and I've said this before, I don't think Microsoft was going to make it cheaper. They were going to still keep it the same price. They were just wanting to get 100% of the profit to themselves and make sure nobody else had to.
I mean, there is that, but there is also the other side of the coin is like, they've seen what Steam can do with sales. And I think they have those dollar signs in their eyes of, well, if we actually do sales and they are decent sales, we can make a lot more money because if we put something on sale and somebody buys it and then it goes off of sale and then their friend sees them playing that game, they might go buy it at full price just so they can play it with their friend even though the sale's over, which that happens a lot on Steam.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, sorry.
But no, that's true. But so this whole thing was that GameStop has always done this. This was Circle of Life. It's been named Circle of Life since 2006. It wasn't even a new name. It wasn't a new program. They emphasized and de-emphasized it throughout the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. So sometimes they push it harder than others, and then other times it's not that big a deal. We're not looking at this, and we're going to study this.
It just got really crazy recently.
It got a lot of press, and it got really crazy recently. Now, and I'm going to tell you the negative. So here's the thing. You get the used. I got used product, which now I can sell to you. Now, if I'm selling you used product, what's the thing that GameStop always does? Hey, do you have our discount card? The subscription to the magazine and the discount card, because you're going to get 10% off all that used purchase. You're going to get these coupons and advantages for being a pro member. So it helps them to do that, to sell you the card because you're buying used to get the discounts off. We got used games, because you beat your game so quick, we can give you the most value. Plus, we're going to give you a 10% extra bonus on your trade-in. So it's always a hustle, Mm-hmm. They're trying to create inventory. They're trying to sell the used because, let's face it, they're making way more on the used than they are on the new.
Let's face it, GameStop is a pawn shop for video games.
It's technically, yes, that's all it's ever been, a pawn shop for video games.
So if you ever watch Pawn Stars, that's exactly what GameStop is doing to you.
Which is why when you go in there and they say, hey, man, this game is $59.99 right now, and I just beat it in the first 5 days. I can give you $2 for it. I mean, that's really Pawn Stars, and that's what GameStop is.
I got a piece of gum and some pocket lint for you.
Yeah. So we We know the hustle. There was nothing new in this story. The thing that was new, and I think a lot of people found shocking, was that, let's say Resident Evil 7 came out, and that was the game that was out when this big thing came, and you went into a GameStop, and that GameStop said, we don't have it new, right? Well, why wouldn't you have it new? It's the hottest, newest game. And they would either try to sell you a used one or not sell you a copy at all. That was what some GameStops were doing, and it wasn't all GameStops. A lot of GameStops took heat for that shit, but it wasn't everything. And that was the thing about the story. Nobody asked questions.
Hashtag not all GameStops.
Not all GameStops. So they didn't ask questions. They didn't look into it. They didn't think anything about it. They just put this story out there. And I mean, that was the thing. I made calls. I went into stores and I started talking to people to their face because I wanted to get the story from them. Mm-hmm. And what it was is that,
on top of that, I think the other thing that's shocking about it is like all of the circle of life horseshit was tied into metrics that were used essentially as a club by the employer to fire employees who were not pushing the circle of life in their day-to-day jobs. So if you weren't maintaining at least, I think it was like 18%.
You had to maintain a number in reses, subs, use, sales. So what they're doing is they're grading you on these things, right? Mm-hmm. And so as they're grading you on these things, they were sitting there saying, okay, well, you have to sell your store based on its level should be making this much in use sales, okay? So these numbers, they weren't like new numbers that they picked up. These were numbers like it'd be based on the previous year's sales of used product, okay? So I think the way some stores broke down depended on, I guess, what you did in 2015. So let's say you sold so much. Oh, we got the fatty catty coming in here today. Oh, that's too cool. The cat came out to get in on the conversation. So let's just say it like this. So let's say in 2015 you did so many thousands of dollars in used sales, right? So they say, hey, 25% of your sales were used, okay? Mm-hmm. We think in this market, based on your last year's used sales, you could do this number, okay?
Yeah.
Now, sometimes those numbers were great, but let's say you had a tremendous freaking year. Just one anomaly year, you know? So in 2015, maybe
Skyrim comes out and fucking fucks up sales numbers for everybody.
Yeah, and so now all of a sudden you did 52% used based on these games. Like, well, yeah, we had 52% used, but we had so many specials around games, like where this game's releasing, this game's releasing. There were 7 or 18 major releases that we had used trades that were like, get 50% extra on your trade-ins toward this game. So nobody thought to think, oh, well, those numbers may have inflated this number for that store this year. Mm-hmm. So now this store has to do 48% of their sales used.
Yeah, or we're going to fire you.
Now, here's what happens. Now, I had to go check on this. Now, once again, off the record, these guys were saying a lot of the stories that we were hearing about firing came out of Florida. Mm-hmm. All right, so it's not like Texas, Louisiana, California. So these guys were like, yeah, I mean, there were stories. They were saying, you know, that most store managers were like, good store managers are going to be able to do this. It wasn't anything ridiculous. If you were a good store manager and you knew how to manage your staff and you knew what you had in the staff and had hired wisely, some of these numbers were going to be doable anyway. It's the numbers where somebody got screwed and had a tremendous year, and then all of a sudden they had some numbers that maybe, okay, but it was 5 areas. So it was like your used, your reservations, the subscriptions, the magazines, the card sales. I can't remember what the other 2 were, but there were these 2 other metrics. So even if you hit in 4 and you missed in 1, you were still 80%, you know?
Yeah.
And that was the thing. It wasn't like you fuck off this 1 metric and you're fired. You were going to have to fuck off 4 of those metrics to get fired. But there were some stores that were in California, regional directors and district managers were telling them, if you can't do this, we will fire you and find somebody that can do this. Okay? Now, the stink was, and nobody reported this, was that after that story came out, after IGN ran the story, the president of GameStop, their CEO, came out and he was like, we don't do that. You know, he made it clear that's bullshit. You're not going to do that.
We did that up until you guys caught us.
Yeah, now it could have been that angle, but he came out kind of pissy about it, and everybody was like, "Yeah, he really did address that." And here's my thing: as a manager, I had to let somebody go because they couldn't meet certain metrics. I've done that before because the thing was, at the end of the day, every transaction counted. Back when I was doing it, but I didn't manage people to a number. Let's say you were my employee, right?
Yeah.
And back then, I said, okay, there was the reservations. There was the subscriptions. But if you were a hell of a salesperson and somebody came in there and said, man, I need a new controller, and you ended up selling them a system, a controller, and 5 games and a magazine subscription, you brought something more to the table than just a fucking magazine subscription and trade-ins. You were a salesperson. You connected with that person. You had an experience with that person. And I was telling my guys, like, I hired differently. I didn't hire GameStops where it was like guys would come in. I've played every Halo and I know everything there is to know about video games. I could give a fuck what you knew about video games. I didn't care that you played every Pokemon that ever existed. Could you relate to people? Like if a grandmother came in here, could you be patient with that grandmother and explain the game that her grandson wanted based on a description? Could you talk to her about the difference in these systems? Could you talk to a single mom who's going to probably come in here, or a single dad who's coming in here with his income tax return to get this kid this system, and actually not put your bias in it and say, well, Xbox is the greatest system, or PlayStation is the greatest system? Actually talk to this person, find out what their fucking family wanted, and then sell them what they wanted, not what you think was great. And so I would find people who were people. You were a people person. You could relate. Grandmas like talking to you. Moms and dads like talking to you. The kids like coming in and talking to you. When they came to the store, they felt like they were talking to their family and not somebody trying to sell them a damn magazine subscription and a reserve every 5 minutes. And I built my staffs at every store like that. And because I did that, every store I had turned into a profit monster.
Yeah.
But we weren't there I wasn't trying to gouge anybody. I didn't make money gouging you. You people, I always thought this, even when I sold cars, people will come back and shop with a friend. If I treat you right, treat you with respect, and treat you decently, you will come back to me, and I don't have to gouge you the first time you're in there. It's like, if I don't get them for everything now, they're never coming back. No, you come in here, I'm going to treat you right, do right by you, make you want to come back and see me, make you know that you can trust me and know I'm going to do right by you and your family, make you want to send your mom and your kids and your wife up in here solo. Because we're not going to try to gouge you or sell you some crap you don't need. Yeah. And I ran every store like that. And that's how most good managers run their stores. Now, there's some shitty managers and shitty stores out there. I'm not going to pretend there aren't. But it was what it was. And so I started talking to these guys, and they told me this story, and then all of a sudden I started asking. So some stores are like, fucked. I'm just going to be honest. They're fucked right now. Because there are stores, they're like 18% of your transactions, there better be a magazine attached to that. A magazine subscription. So out of 100 transactions, you better have sold 18 subscriptions. Yeah. Okay? Every 100 transactions better be 18 subscriptions. Let me tell you how fucking hard that is. Because back when we were doing it, and I'm talking 2006 to 2012, back when I was running with the big dogs, bro, that you only had to do 5% of your sales.
See, that's the thing, is like putting that high demand on people. How long is it before they fucking turn into, what was it, Citibank or one of the big banks?
Wells Fargo, when people started running, we're just creating these accounts. And
just to signing people up for shit without telling them and fucking charging them.
And that's what's going to happen. And there have already been reports that it's happened where people were doing some jicky shit. Now, here's where that gets fucked up. Let's say you got this guy under this pressure to produce that number, and then he does it, and you catch it. Well, that goes against the fucking ethics board. They have an investigator that's looking at those numbers, and you're going to get fired because you did some stupid jicky shit. And it's going to ruin that market because everybody's going to know that store did some underhanded shit. Yeah. And if the customer found out that guy did some underhanded shit, everybody and their fucking uncle's going to question whether they got ripped off when they came in there. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it. And you put people under, and I mean, I understand it. People got to eat and pay their bills, and
it's not worth it to have this hit the company now when the company's already struggling to just stay open in general.
Here's the thing, because GameStop, everybody's been, oh, GameStop's going to close. GameStop's going to close. They're going to be kiosking them all for years. But here's the thing.
Realistically, though, like if you look at the market, like if you look at the European market, like Game closed down. Game is basically the European version of GameStop.
Oh, yeah.
Almost all of their stores are fucking gone.
You know what's fucked up?
So
in
it's
their
not
market, the only thing that's the only stores that survived were the ones that GameStop went into those markets and bought those stores out. And, like Guerrilla Games, they closed. That was a European game.
Yeah.
GameStop bought them out, took it over, and took over those markets.
I think we're to the point where we really don't need a GameStop. Like realistically, the PlayStation and the Xbox should be all digital stores. And if you want to buy something, like if a retailer, or not a retailer, but a publisher like Bethesda wants to put out a game and have a big fucking gigantic fuck off statue that they sell as the collector's edition or whatever, you just order it from a place like Amazon, and then you get a code and you put that code into the PlayStation and that gives you the item, or you sell it directly on the PlayStation Store. They already have your fucking house address. They just send you the fucking legendary package that goes along with that game physically to you, and you just cut the fucking middleman out.
They don't
completely.
want it. They don't fucking. That's the problem. Everybody says that shit, but the problem is, at the end of the day, EA doesn't even fucking want to sell directly to you.
Yeah, we do. That's why we have Origin.
Yeah, we have Origin to sell you PC, but we don't do the box sets to the public. We don't fucking do it. I mean, hell, it's hard enough for the employees to get the damn collector's edition big box sets,
Yeah.
Even we don't get them. So it's a lot of fuckery where everybody's like, yeah, we could cut out the middleman. Everybody knows that, but nobody wants to pay for the fucking warehouses to put the shit in and to go through the
But
counts.
they already
and
are paying for the warehouses to put the shit in before they fucking ship it out to wherever it's going.
I'm going to tell you right now, I've been to that warehouse in Grapevine. These motherfuckers are on a whole nother level than most other companies, man. I'm telling you, GameStop's doing some shit that I just sit there sometimes and I'm just like, fuck.
It's not any different than what Amazon is
Yeah.
doing.
Yep.
I mean,
But shit, I think Amazon is a big version of what GameStop tried to do on a small version for all their stores. But it's fucking nuts.
I mean, we're getting to the point where like a place like Amazon is setting up distribution centers in every single state so that they can distribute faster to the people that are in those states.
Exactly.
They are setting up delivery services where you can get just about anything in about 2 hours, including food.
Even
they
Walmart's starting to do the whole online and just come pick up. Tell us you're in the parking lot. We'll come deliver it to your car. I mean,
so the way that it's going, eventually, like, why the fuck do I ever need to go to a physical location other than like a food store to pick stuff up if I actually want to go shopping that way? And when it comes to games, like, why the fuck would I want to go to GameStop and have to have somebody try to fucking sell me some shit I don't want when I can just go on Amazon and I can buy it and have it shipped to me and it'll be here in an hour or two, or I can go, or what I should be able to do is go to the PlayStation Store or go to Steam and order the game and get the game immediately, and then if there's some kind of physical contents that come with it, like a map or a fucking statue or some other horse shit, just have them mail it to me.
bro, I'm going to tell you right now.
That's the way it should be.
It should be. Now, here's the thing that fucked me up, and I'm just being real. This is history here. If NIS or Atlas or any of the JRPG companies that I buy from ever get to the point where they're like, fuck all these retail stores, because Walmart doesn't carry their games, Target doesn't carry their games. If you want a JRPG, 9 times out of 10, I mean, shit, most of the stuff I bought for the Vita, there were games that were GameStop exclusives from those companies.
Yeah.
And then, or I had to find it on Amazon.
GameStop is this weird thing. Like, GameStop to me is like Blockbuster, and it should have closed around the same time Blockbuster did. But it didn't, because the culture around gaming is ridiculously nostalgic, to the point where everybody wants to go, I want to go buy the game physically. I want to have a disc. I want to be able to put it on my wall. Like, none of that shit fucking matters. All that's doing is just killing the fucking planet.
Yeah, that shit doesn't matter to you, and I know it doesn't. And we've said this before, but you and I have both said, there's a lot of shit that don't matter to me that somebody is fucking passionate about. Yeah. Now, I'm one of those guys that's like, JRPGs are really the only thing I'm like super passionate about. You know, I'm not a guy I've only bought maybe 4, maybe 5 collector's editions of anything.
It's like,
I'm not the guy that's going to, I need the art book and all this shit. I just wanted the fucking game.
Yeah.
For the best price possible.
And that's the other thing, too, is like if you look at the PC market, since Steam launched in 2004, if you go into any GameStop, how many fucking PC games can you see on the shelf?
Bro, you're
None.
lucky if you even see the fucking cards.
None.
You see those little Steam cards on that little kiosk thing, and that's it now.
Exactly. Like, there's no point because everything is digitally distributed, and that's all we fucking need.
Yeah.
And if you want a physical collector's edition of something, I'm not going to go to fucking GameStop to go buy it. I'm going to go to fucking Fry's, or I'm going to go to Walmart or Micro Center, whatever big box store.
Let's be honest, bro. You're going to Amazon that shit just like every one of our other friends.
Yeah, if I want to
and
Amazon
especially
it
get
too.
same day delivery
Fuck
of the
yeah.
of the game
Fuck
release.
yeah.
So it's like I don't even have to go to the midnight
Like,
fucking.
all I do is just go answer my door, and I have the thing.
Origin has got me at the point now where it's like, if I want that game, and I can already download it 48 hours before
Ahead
the
of
game
time?
launches,
Yeah.
and then it just turns on at 11 o'clock the night before the game.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. Why would I get up and go to a store and wait in line at a midnight opening just to get Blockbuster hit number 14 of the year?
The only reason to go to an actual store that I could think of realistically is for new hardware, not for new software. Going to a physical location to buy software is like, I mean, I can't even think of a fucking correct analogy for that because it just doesn't make any goddamn sense.
But, there's still a group of people that'll do. And here's the thing. Like, I'm a guy that, I'm really weird. So, you got junkies out there. I'm a console junkie.
Yeah.
And I'll just be honest. I have bought, you name a console,
Speaking
I probably
of-
invested in it. Okay?
Dead Switch.
Yeah, I'm not doing that one yet. But
No, you're doing that one.
no, seriously, you're not. We had that conversation today. We'll get into that in a second. But, okay, my thing was this, that I don't see the point right now. Like, I had a Vita. And I had the years ago, PSP was probably on its second generation, so the 2000 series of PSPs. They came out with this thing called the PSP Go, right? And it was like, it looked like a Vita, except the top screen would slide up and the controls were under it.
Yeah.
The PSP Go was all digital. There were no disc.
Yeah.
You bought a memory card. It had internal memory, and you downloaded everything onto your Go from the store. The PlayStation Store was in there. You wanted that new game and it came out, boom, download it. You want to put money on your account, go get a PSN card. Everything was done digitally, okay?
Yeah.
It was a great system. It was actually a great system. Do you know the number one reason why it failed? And this was magazines, American magazines. I'm talking Game Informer. I'm talking PlayStation Now. All these magazines were saying this. The critics were saying this online. The number one reason it failed in the U.S. was because U.S. gamers want physical copies.
Because
you know what?
Fucking idiots.
Yeah, you know what I think the number one problem is? That system was seriously 10 years ahead of its time. If you dropped a PSP Go on the market right now, I think people would be like, "Oh fuck yeah, I'll get that."
Do you remember mini discs?
Hell yeah.
Shit that's ahead of its time. If you made, at the time the mini discs came out, if you made a mini disc player that played MP3s, you could have a 534 megabit mini disc filled with more music than you could fit in a binder of CDs, and you could change them out. Like if Sony would have just pulled their head out of their ass and done it at the time that it came out, mini discs wouldn't have failed.
But that's the problem. Sony's notorious for putting out hardware and not supporting it properly, not marketing it properly, or making it proprietary hardware. Like you need to have you have to have this memory card. You can't go out and just go buy a fucking SD card that'll work in this that's going to be cheap. No, you got to go get the Sony brand that we're going to overcharge you for. And we're going to make it smaller than any other SD card because it's got to be the proprietary Sony. And we're doing that so people don't hack. No, you're doing it because you're stupid asses.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing. So GameStop, here's the thing. They have survived because every time the times has changed and somebody rings the death knell prematurely for GameStop, they will fucking morph into something else and they survive. I'll tell you right now, I didn't even know this shit till I started doing the interviews. Do you know that there are GameStop AT&T stores?
Yeah.
So there are GameStop AT&T stores where you go in and they sell some games, but they sell phone plans. And then we know that they own Cricket. And now if you go into a GameStop, I don't even know if they want to fucking...
Wait, hold on. Rewind. GameStop owns Cricket?
Yeah, there ain't on that.
No wonder why cricket's so fucking terrible.
Yeah, they're in on that. I did not know this. I'm just learning all kinds of stuff for this interview. It was just talking to these guys, and like, I'd heard things, and I was like, wait, they what? Yeah, that's us. Get the and we're in the bed with AT&T. I said, so you're in the bed with AT&T on this phone? Yeah. Okay. So they're AT&T/GameStop stores.
Yeah.
But then here's the thing: if you go into GameStop now, I don't know if they want to fucking be a Spencer's or not. Because they're selling you all that Think Geek shit. And it's
they've got,
like there's T-shirts and lanyards and pops. And like, I thought this was a video game store. You're selling me action figures and cool sunglasses and all this other shit that's kind of geeky paraphernalia, but it's not necessarily a game. It's not, and I'm different. So I know I'm older. Mm-hmm. My tastes aren't the same as some 19-year-old kid. Hell, my tastes aren't the same as a 12-year-old kid that gets excited for video games, okay? Because I'm not a fool to understand the business side of this. Younger generations push. They don't have, not all of them have the money, as far as like allowance and that, but they do push what their parents are buying. Because parents don't, I don't know what shuts down in our brains, but once we have kids, we don't think logically anytime. Sometimes we just hear our kid really wants this, and all we got to do is figure out how the fuck to get it. We don't really think through it like, was that a good purchase? Will that be a good purchase? Will that be the best system for them? Why do they want this system? Do they want this system because all their friends have this system? Do they want this system? Are all the kids going to get the same joy out of this system? What is our investment? How many controllers are we going to need to enjoy this system? These are the questions that I think of now as a gamer. I started thinking about it because I worked at GameStop, so it probably shaped how I thought about systems because I know how they were packaged to be sold to me and how I sold them. So I think differently about it, but now at this point, I'm 46, bro. I don't need all the collectors. I can tell you right now, I bought a collector's edition of Psycho Pass from NIS. It had an art book. It had some stickers. I bought a collector's edition of Corpse Party for the Vita last year. I think that was another NIS game. And the only reason I bought it, they were numbered. They were a limited edition and they were numbered. And I still haven't taken mine out of the wrapper. The game is still in the freaking wrapper this late in the process. I still have it. So, I mean, there were things that, like, I realized I'm not their target audience a lot of times anymore. Mm-hmm. And so that's the thing. Like, GameStop's always going to morph. They figure out, oh, pops are hot? Psh, we'll carry them. Oh, people like Think Geek and they want to buy that stuff and they're going online to get all this, convention stuff. That's what I call it. Like if you go to a Comic-Con or you go to Anycon or any of those anime cons, that's all that's con product, man.
Yeah.
This is all your gift bags. Oh, I got, this lanyard and I got this keychain and blah, 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 blah. That's great. GameStop figured out how to stay alive doing that. But I promise you, the minute somebody comes out with a system, a home console that's 2 terabytes, at least minimum 2 terabytes. A way to expand
that's what Microsoft
they're going to be done.
That's what Microsoft should have done. Like from the get go, 500 gigabit is retarded. If they would have stayed with the all digital download, no disk system, they could have eliminated all of that extra money that they were paying for having the disk drive and then having to set up all the software to do all that shit, and then could have put that into just put a big fucking hard drive in it, put a terabit, put 2 terabit, put 5 terabit in it, whatever. Sell different models with different hard drives. Sell an expansion slot on it where you just slap a drive in there and close it off, and you can sell more hard drive space later. But it's fucking anything that's not digital distribution is just dumb at this point. You're wasting time, you're wasting money, you're wasting manpower, you're wasting resources. Like, just do digital distribution. Fuck what everybody says, just do it. If it's a colossal fucking failure and you want to backpedal later, then do it. But at the moment, that's what needs to happen. Like, all the console systems just need to go digital only. Even fucking the new system, the Switch, like, that should be digital only. I don't know why the hell they're going to sell fucking games on little bitty goddamn cartridges that you stick into it. It's just dumb.
Bro, I'm promise you right now, I don't know if I'll see digital only in my lifetime.
You're just going to lose those little motherfuckers.
I promise you, I don't. Have you seen the little tiny ass SD mini cards that go in a Vita?
Yeah.
I promise you, I don't think I will see it.
In my NVIDIA.
Yeah, I don't.
Shield.
If I see it in my lifetime, I'll be shocked. I'm 46. I don't don't know if I'll make it to 90.
I mean, if you want to see a digital only console, just look at the NVIDIA Shield, which is essentially exactly what the Switch is, but it's just they decided to add on a fucking slot where you can stick a fucking card in that
What
has
about the
game
Steam
on it.
consoles, the living room Steam machines?
Yeah, the Steam machines.
They're all digital.
They're all digital too, but like you can build those with a disk drive if you want to, and you can still get physical media for PC if you want to. Like if you live in the middle of the fucking sticks and you have shitty internet, then I could see all digital would probably be bad. But you know what? Move to where the fucking internet is.
Most people don't. Now, I'm telling you, I know some people that are in the middle of nowhere. You know, I know a guy, okay, in Ohio. I had to help him with his internet. I've troubleshot his internet, man, you know, because it's what I do for EA, so it was cool to do it for a friend. But still, like, when we got done, and I'm telling you, this guy was still like, oh, your ping time looks great. You know, you're only pulling 38 seconds for 45. But I want you to go ahead and run this thing called the UO trace we do. And then I'm looking at it and going, bro, you got some shit where you're going from 8 to 1,008 in your best and worst overall. So you got erratic at best internet.
Yeah.
And you're dropping, there's some packet loss on some of these. So I was like, and he had the top of the line package in Ohio. And he wasn't like in the middle of nowhere. He was on the edge of fucking like town.
Yeah.
He was on the edge of Cleveland. So like a suburb of Cleveland. He shouldn't be having this shitty a connection with Time Warner.
This Time Warner, when any internet company is a monopoly, when there aren't other choices, that's when internet connection speeds go through the floor. It's like here in Austin, we have Spectrum, which is formerly Time Warner. We have AT&T. We have Google Fiber, which is spreading.
If Google Fiber ever makes it to Round Rock, I'm jumping ship, bro.
There's even Verizon. Verizon is here as well. I don't know if they do Fios or not here, but Verizon's another company that you can get internet from here. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of good competition, and you can get a decent line. Like, you know, the one that I have here is amazing. I don't have any problems with it. I would rather have Google Fiber because I'd rather have symmetrical up and down. I need a gigabit up. That would be godly.
But my pants tighten up thinking about Google Fiber coming to Round Rock. I don't care. And if I'm saying this right now, if you're listening to this podcast and you don't know what Google Fiber is, Google that.
Yeah.
Go understand why you want Google Fiber, and it's forcing everybody else to play nice and compete because Google's amazing.
Google has basically just decided to quit Google Fiber. I mean, they're in the markets that it's already in, it's going to continue to be there. They're not going to close it down. But all the markets that they announced they were going to spread into, almost all of them have decided they've decided they're not going to do it. And in San Antonio, they hit a road bump recently where people were pissed off that they were putting the fiber lines in. And so there was a temporary injunction put on them putting fiber lines in, and Google isn't fighting it. They're just saying, all right, whatever, we're just not going to do it anymore.
That doesn't make sense. It's the greatest thing that can happen to your internet. This is why I say sometimes the American people are stupid. We do things that just...
It's not the
American... We'll cut our face off to just spite ourselves.
But that's the thing is it's not the United States... It's not... It's Google deciding that they don't want to do it anymore because they don't want to continue to make the investment that's required in order to get this set up everywhere.
And it's amazing. Once you try... Have you ever tried it where somebody had it and you tried it?
No.
I tried it one time. They weren't lying. The speed was just like...
It's incredible.
It's noticeable difference in speed.
Yeah, and I mean it's
like having a T1 connection in your house.
A T1 is only 45 megabit a second.
Yeah,
it's 200.
It's still faster than most people.
It would be like having a T1 in like 1995.
Exactly. That's how it felt. Yeah. It was nice, man. It was just like there's a noticeable difference in speed.
You just click on things and it's done. You know, you're not waiting around for anything realistically. So long as the server that you're getting it from can supply you at the speed that you're able to get it. Perfect.
Done. Let's go. Finished.
But I think that Google overall, I think specifically after Alphabet spun away from Google and turned into the parent company, and then Google became the subsidiary.
Right.
I think that change is what decided that they were not going to continue with Google Fiber.
That sucks.
And it's really sad, but I mean, realistically, they can make a hell of a lot more money doing other things. And
that's right.
Their primary thing that they do is just they're there to make money. And if installing hundreds of thousands of feet of fiber in a city is not going to make them more money overall, then who cares?
And at the end of the day, everybody's a corporation, and their number one job is to make money.
Yeah.
And answer to shareholders, which I think GameStop does that very well. They answer to their shareholders. I'm not saying they're going to be loyal to all their employees. I'm
Yeah.
not saying
They also
do
tried
that,
their
but-
hand at publishing games, which I don't think is going very well for them.
Well, actually, this has kind of worked out for them. And this is Song of the Deep, which was an Insomniac Games. Insomniac, a big company, kind of skipped everybody as a publisher, and GameStop published the game for them. And the game did well in reviews. It was exclusive, I think, to GameStop. Like, you had to go to GameStop to get this.
Yeah.
And not only did it do well, they are about to release, I think, 2 more games. Mm-hmm. They got 2 more games coming out that they've done that, hey, it's just us. These are GameStop published games. So it's doing okay for them. It hadn't done bad. They're okay on it. I still think I think that a lot of people, overall, what I'm saying about this is, a lot of people made a big deal out of this whole GameStop Circle of Life thing. It really probably wasn't as big a deal as it should have been. It shouldn't have gotten the news as big as it was. I do know this much, man, and I heard this from several managers. You're starting to see where they're cutting payroll hours in a lot of these stores. And because they're cutting those payroll hours, like, the managers are no longer salaried. Mm-hmm. So now managers are, I think, after 44 hours have to be out of the store. They can't work off the clock. They just, 44 for the week, you're done. And what you're seeing is to combat, these having to make every sale count. It's just managers working. You'll see a manager, assistant manager, and a third key manager. And that'll be the whole staff for that store.
That's the thing that doesn't make any sense, though, is why you would take a manager off of salary and put them back on hourly, because on salary, you essentially can work them to fucking death and get way more for your money out of it, because if they work 60 hours a week and they're on salary, they still get paid the same.
I was working 70 fucking 4 hours some weeks.
Yeah.
Now, look, they paid me well to be salaried. I mean, when they hired me, I knew what I was going into, and I was going in under the impression, I kind of knew what everybody else was making. Mm-hmm. So I know that I got paid more than some starting managers, because I did traveling. Like, I would take stores that weren't in my city, and it could be an hour drive or commute to these stores that I was taking over. Yeah. And they compensated me for that on the front end in my salary to combat, hey, you're going to tear your car. They didn't give me a car and pay for that, but they did compensate me. Yeah. And so it's still the idea that, hey, this is kind of jacked. There's some things going on here where these managers are now working in these stores by themselves. You'll see a lot of management working hours by themselves because they don't have the money in payroll. And where's this money in payroll? Well, GameStop's cutting it because, they projected they were going to make so much in the second quarter or fiscal year, in the fourth quarter before the new fiscal year starts. And so they'll cut these payroll hours after Christmas and make these guys work skeleton. And, hey, you're going to have to get the most you can out of 74 hours. Yeah. But your store better not lose these sales, and you better produce.
Another thing, too, it's kind of related but kind of unrelated. A few 2 or 3 months ago, I kind of predicted this. I was like, in a few months, soon, Twitch is going to start selling video games. And that just happened.
Are you fucking serious?
Yeah, Twitch now has its own online store for selling games directly to Twitch subscribers. They even have their own downloader program that's similar to like Steam and Origin. So now Twitch is now a competitor with Steam and Origin and Direct to Drive and Green Man Gaming and all the other websites that are out there for it. And they have a ready inbuilt audience, and they have a digital distribution network in Amazon. So they have all the pieces to just make a dent. I don't know how big of a dent it's going to be, but they could technically make a dent now with the resources that they've got because they're a part of Amazon. And everybody loves fucking Twitch.
You're already there watching people play the game. Why not buy it? Why are you watching them play it?
And then they could start cutting in individuals who are streaming a game to where if they're streaming that game and then sales of that game happen from people who are watching them by clicking a link that's on that page while they're streaming it, they can get cut in on that revenue, which means that they could have their own Twitch store. So and any individual Twitch streamer could have a store that's attached directly to them that gives them money. There's a lot of possibilities there. There's a lot of possibilities.
We're going to definitely have to watch this one, man. I mean, I was just glad I felt like we needed to do this show because there were a lot of managers and a lot of people and GameStop employees that felt like the story wasn't fair. It didn't tell both sides of the story. But at the same time, I felt like we didn't sugarcoat it. There's some, it's existed for a while. It existed when I was a manager. But at the same time, I'm not going to shit in a heart-shaped box and tell you it's chocolate. I mean, GameStop has some shitty practices.
You might if there was a good joke.
Yeah, I might if there's a great joke. I might. But yeah, it's I'm not going to sugarcoat this. There's some great GameStop does some things great, and I have a lot of friends and family that still work for the company, and I love them dearly. And I didn't have a bad experience with GameStop. But at the same time, be loyal to your employees, man. Your whole company. These people aren't numbers. These are human beings, and treat them as such, man.
Yeah.
And I'm real big about karma. I don't care what company you are. If you fuck over your employees, the people that built that company for you from the inside, you'll eventually start fucking over the people on the outside of it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna end it with that, man. I mean, I talked to a lot of guys. Like I said, they didn't want to. It's weird when you're talking to people and they're like, "Man, you cannot use my name." I'm like, "Damn, dude, what are we in Watergate? What is this?"
Yeah.
So
and it's just
because
that's their livelihood. Like, you can't fuck with somebody's livelihood.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not. I would never do that. So I just we talked. They told me the good, the bad, and what's going on. But man, I know there are some stores out there under some damn pressure.
Yeah.
There's some store managers under a lot of pressure this year, and I wish them all the best, man. I'll never shit on them. I mean, as long as they got the JRPGs that I want and I can't get them anywhere else, then yeah, I'll probably go in there if they got a sale. But I don't go. I can't say I'd buy exclusively from GameStop like I used to, because that'd be a lie. I have a lot of shit that comes from Amazon.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to JRPGs that I want to get, sometimes they're not at stores here.
It's like GameStop is one step away from being game over video games. If you're from Austin or you're from San Antonio, you're from Texas, and you've heard of game over video games, it's basically just like any old system that you've ever wanted. If you want to go in and be able to buy the entire ROM set for the original NES in the cartridge, that's the place that you go.
Yeah.
And GameStop is one step away from being that place.
And that's the thing.
Because they just sell new games. They don't just sell the old ones.
But here's my thing, though, man. GameStop kind of fucks with me because we used to sell all those old games. We used to have, GBA, PS1, and GameStop kind of PS2, Xbox, original Xbox.
But as those travel further and further away from being relevant to now, they stop.
Yeah, but then the thing was too, they got rid of all these cases, and then there are games sold without cases because we want to sell you the games, but we don't care about preserving the history or keeping the boxes for collectors. We just got to stack as much inventory into the store as possible, and I still think that at the end of the day, GameStop, yeah, that's great. You're just trying to make sales, but you're fucking with the collector market at the same time. That's why there's so many overinflated prices in that collector's market. So I don't know. It's a good and a bad to everything that everybody does. I know at the end of the day, they're just wanting to make $1.
Yeah.
All right, man. Anything else for us this week?
I've had some really bad gas for the past week.
I appreciate you being able to share that with me, you fart machine. Not that I gave a damn, but thank you for sharing. Yeah. No, that's cool though, man. Any traveling this weekend?
I don't know. Possibly.
All right. Well, I put a post out. I'm gonna talk about it here on the show on my personal Facebook page. If you're following that, I told people, hey, is there anybody you want us to interview for the show? Because a lot of our recent one where we had, Wilfred Estevez, and then we had Tim Randall on here, and he talked about Madden Ultimate Team. The show where we had Dice on last year is still one of our most downloaded episodes. Still a lot of people it shocks me how many people are just discovering that we had the product managers from Dice on here before Battlefield 1 launched. People are just now discovering that episode. And so it's kind of cool. And then, we're talking to these guys that are making some small independent game called Mass Effect Andromeda. We've been talking to these guys for a while, trying to get them on here.
Speaking of, we need to email them.
Yes, we do.
We're getting close.
Yeah, we've been talking, they're just making this small independent game. Not a lot of people have ever heard of this franchise called Mass Effect. But, yeah, we're talking to these guys. And then I just said, hey, is there anybody on the show you would like us to try to interview? Now, it's no secret. About a month ago, I announced that I've been pursuing Hideo Kojima to the point where I'm not quite sure he's going to call me a stalker yet, but he may think I'm in love with him.
But when you show up at his house, unexpected.
Yeah. If he doesn't answer this next email, that's my next step.
You are still taking that trip to Japan, so
I am still going to Japan, so it's not out of the question that I'm going to meet Hideo Kojima and we're going to have this conversation and get him on the show. It is just definitely one of the things where we have to have his interpreter, and they kind of, they want to know what they're getting into before they talk to us. And it's really just, it's work. That dude is workaholic, man. He does not take a lot of interviews. He'd rather work on games.
he'd rather make trailers that nobody can fucking decipher.
Yeah, or he makes trailers that people just sit there and try to break down.
I read a fucking article recently. He was talking to Mads Mikkelsen trying to explain the fucking plot of Death Stranding, and Mads Mikkelsen was like, I don't fucking understand. Because it was so fucking like convoluted and twisted in on itself that he didn't understand what the hell was going on.
That's awesome.
So
That's awesome.
Let's get out of here.
Okay. Oh, I will tell you who our number one pick is right now. He's leading, and he's the one that everybody wants us to interview. Kenny Omega from New Japan Wrestling.
Okay.
That's who everybody wants us to go after. So far, he's like, his name got mentioned by our friend Karen, and people lost their damn mind. So I may be looking into trying to get Kenny Omega on the show.
Okay.
All right, brother. So if we pull that one off, we are the greatest show ever. Guys, thank y'all for listening to us. If you have ideas and suggestions for who you'd like to see us interview in the upcoming weeks, definitely hit us up on our goteamlift@gmail.com email. You can also follow us on our Facebook page, Twitter. All the social media links are to follow at the end of the show. Hit us up on one of them and tell us what you think of the show, what you hate about the show, what you hate about Brandon farting, and who you want us to interview. Everybody have a great week. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Team Lift Podcast with your hosts, Brendan Bowie and Roderick McDaniel. Join us again next week as we discuss more topics from geek culture. Be sure to follow us on our Twitter page @GoTeamLift, as well as our personal pages @Coach Silky and @ThighSide. You can direct questions and comments to us on our Twitter page, as well as find links to all of our social media outlets. Thank you for listening. See you again next week.